Great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our fifth session of the day. We just got a lot of good information from Dr. Daniel Kraft. In case you missed it, you can go back and watch the replay. The replays are always available almost immediately after each session. So just go in the top left, it says schedule, and you can click through each session and go back and watch them at your leisure to catch up. Looks like we've added maybe 100 or so people since we signed off last time, which is just absolutely mind-boggling. I think we'll have 20,000 people tuning in here during your session now, which will be a fun milestone to cover with you. But enough about that and this. Nell is on part of our AI faculty here at Singularity University. She speaks in programs and events all around the world. But specifically related to coronavirus, she is on the coronavirus task force at the American Association for Precision Medicine and is a founding council member of the International Society of Digital Medicine. So with that, I will kick it over to you, Nell.
Thank you so much indeed. Hello, everyone. It is a wild world that we find ourselves in. And it's a different world for different people in different places at different times. And that's rapidly changing. If we have a look at Italy, we can see one of the greatest hot zones on our planet today. And there's been a lot of quite alarming and scary news out of Italy lately. We're starting to see reports that they're going to have to triage treatment. And that means that people who are younger and stronger and have less disease they're going to get the priority. And those that aren't are probably going to lose out. That's a horrible, horrible situation, but that's where we are today. A lot of this is due to a lack of ventilators and also, of course, a lack of staff and a lack of personal protective equipment. Those who are on the ventilator are likely to stay there for 3 to 4 weeks. And when they come off of it, there's a good chance that some of them will have brain damage, at least for a time. Younger people may think that they are invincible. They often do. But in this case, we're finding that, for example, in the Netherlands, about 50% of people are actually under the age of 50 in intensive care. And there are some very young people indeed who are being affected by this. This is not the sort of thing we want to catch if we can possibly avoid it. So let's learn a little bit about how best to do that. There are 3 main transmission methods: droplet and aerosol, basically coughing and sneezing; contact, that is to touch something and then generally touch one's mucous membrane. So that's the nose, the eyes, or the mouth. And also, perhaps, we're not sure, a fecal-oral method. So how do we prevent these? Let's start with fecal-oral. That one's reasonably simple enough. Put the lid down when you flush, wash your hands very carefully, and try to avoid using public restrooms if possible. When it comes to sneezing, it's possible for somebody to sneeze a great distance, many, many feet or meters. But if you put a mask on that person, like a surgical mask, the droplets don't tend to go terribly far. And so in a world where we have a tremendous shortage of masks right now, it makes sense to put those masks on a sick person and not on someone who is not yet sick. If you have, 10 people in a building and one of them is sick, you put the mask on the sick person and the other 10 have a much better chance of surviving and doing okay. This problem of a lack of masks means that it's very difficult now for clinicians to do their work. And if any of you are sitting on a big box of masks that it looks like you're maybe not going to use, I would really suggest that you consider donating those to people that are definitely, certainly going to use them and going to need them very soon. We can make masks. There's a wonderful video. I've put a link to it here, although I won't have time to go through it today, where you can actually make a mask out of paper towels and tissue. If any of you are sitting on 200 toilet rolls, then this is what you can use them for. You can also create them out of cloth, and there are these wonderful links to information that will tell you how to do that. You can get the old sewing machine out of the closet and start protecting yourself and your family very soon. Gentlemen, those of you that have a beard, I recommend at least trimming it down to a small mustache so that you can be sure that any mask that you have will fit you and fit you well. And I also recommend that if you have anything that can fit over your head, whether it's like a cycling buff, ski mask, or even like a keffiyeh, put it on, because it means that you're much less likely to want to touch your face, your mouth, your eyes, etc. And in fact, you can even use a t-shirt. Have a look at this very smart kid. He pulls up the back of the shirt over the head, make kind of like a ninja mask, and then tie it at the back, the two arms, like a long t-shirt or a sweater. And then voila, there you go. You have your own little face protector, and that will teach you not to be touching it. If you want to wear a mask or put it on a sick person, make sure that it fits well over the nose. Peel it over the ears. Make sure the nose is fitting well, and then pull it down to the chin. Make sure that it's snug and doesn't drop down, and don't pull it down to talk to anyone. To take it off by the ears. Try not to touch the front. Pull it off the ears, and that should be safe. Please don't travel. Travel, if you can avoid it, is a really good way to be. There's a tremendous risk of getting locked down, issues with insurance, cancellations, even the bankruptcy of your airline. And now people in quarantine are being told that they're obliged to pay for it. So don't travel if you can possibly avoid it. If you must travel, for example, in order to get home, my recommendation is to set the air nozzles above you to about 50%. You don't want too much, or it'll dry out your mucous membranes and make them more likely to get germs in them. But if you set it to about 50%, it should create kind of like an air shield and help to keep germs away from you. Try not to touch or eat anything. Just be like a sack of potatoes. These kinds of goodies will help to keep you safe in terms of touching and contact. Gloves, wipes, hand sanitizer, and soap. Try not to handshake anyone. It's a very difficult thing when we're in a world where these are the social expectations. Give somebody a wave instead, tip your hat, give them a namaste, even a curtsy, whatever works. Please remember to wash your hands as much as possible. The light parts here are showing up under ultraviolet, and those are germs. But with 30 seconds of good, decent washing, you can see the difference that it makes. When we're out and about, we'll probably want to use hand sanitizer if we can find it and if it's available. However, please use soap and water first if you can, because hand sanitizer is only about 30% as effective. A lot of people don't like how it's tacky and sticky, but please keep it wet for as long as possible so that it can do its job. If you're running low on it, you can make it yourself, but please follow the instructions to the letter. Do not mix isopropyl and ethanol. Do not mix chlorine and ammonia, of course. Don't do those things. Follow the instructions. But there are instructions for two different versions, one using ethanol, one using isopropyl, that you can download from the WHO website. Remember that hand sanitizer tends to dry out the hands, and that can lead to cuts or abrasions. It's painful, and it's also dangerous because it makes it easier for germs to get in there. So protect them with lotion. Something else you can try is copper tape. This is something you can just cut and stick to just about anything, any hard surface. It tends to destroy coronavirus there's differing reports, somewhere between 4 to 12 hours. But these things are half-life. It means that they will kill more and more germs over time. And of course, you can apply this if you want to be a public-spirited person on even things like stoplights. Try not to touch buttons. Use an elbow, for example, or maybe 3D print one of these little devices off Thingiverse. It can help you to open doors without needing to touch it with your hand. course, you can also use a handkerchief or a rag or something like that, even perhaps your coat if you're wearing one. How to take off gloves, very important. Pinch at the cuff and then pull, and pull it inside out like this so that it comes off. Then bunch it up with the other hand, and then take your index finger of your now naked hand and put that along your arm and under the glove, like so. And then pull it out, and then pull the other one off inside out. And then you have something which is safe for you to safely dispose of. Please remember to disinfect your devices. It's very important. We touch these things all the time and they are filthy. You can wash them. You can even submerge them if they are IP67 or 68, as most modern phones are, though not all. You can wipe them down with isopropyl, or you can keep them in a Ziploc bag. And it should be safe to use kind of wipes or Clorox or even bleach on these devices. Well, maybe not bleach, but Clorox or Lysol wipes should be okay. Don't go to the gym, right? For your sake and others, but do work out. Keeping fit really matters. It helps to keep you safe. Please do it at home, and do some home workout, home video kind of athletics. Please don't go to the cinema or the theater. Please don't go to bars or nightclubs. It's a very bad idea. Avoid the hairdresser is my recommendation. It's time to bring back the hippie look, I think. Avoid the dentist, perhaps somebody who has been in close contact with lots of people, breathing in and out and body fluids and things. Maybe a good idea to avoid the dentist unless you really need to visit. I'd also avoid your beautician, but do it yourself and make sure that your nails are short, because all kinds of horrible gunk gets under there. So make sure those are trimmed. If you go to a church, synagogue, mosque, etc., please try to consider fulfilling your spiritual needs solo, if you can, or virtually with other people, right? Try not to be in close contact with people if you can avoid it. Work from home as much as possible, or stagger your hours so that you don't end up going, the typical busy periods. Maximize airflow. Get as much air into your building as you can. This will really help to make a big difference to how much viruses are likely to spread. This is the same in cars and taxis. Wind that window down. Or take things outdoors. This is a court. And during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, they held courts outside where it was much safer. Learn from our wise ancestors. You can also perhaps use a humidifier to try to increase the humidity of your environment. Apparently, says research, between 40 to 60% relative humidity helps to reduce contamination of germs and viruses. If you don't go out with other people or you're not contacting other people, it may be safe enough to take a walk, unless there is a curfew, of course. Please stay at least 2 meters or 6 feet away from any other person, and bring your ID in case somebody asks who you are and where you're going. You can also, if you like, when you're out there, have a picnic. And this can be a wonderful thing for morale, maybe good for birthdays and that sort of thing as well. Create a red zone in your house. A red zone is where you store things that might be dirty or contaminated. Do not enter your red zone unless you're prepared to scrub yourself down again. And if people become sick in your household, their typical spaces, their rooms, etc., that becomes a red zone too, of course. Shoes, you should leave in your red zone. Do not bring outdoor shoes and walk around them in the house. You can also use these kinds of boot covers, or you can even use a plastic bag. This will also help to keep your shoes safer. When you go out shopping, look up on your map and figure out when the shop is less busy and go then. Don't use reusable bags like totes. They can carry all kinds of germs. Take a disposable bag and then use the disposable bag to help get rid of any contaminated items that you may have. Wipe down the shopping cart when you get there with some wipes. Think Alanis Morissette. When you go to the grocery store, have one hand in your pocket and the other one holding a grocery bag. This will help you to stop touching your face. It's a good tip. Go contactless when you pay with your card or your phone. Don't put the virus in your fridge. Wash your produce or wipe it down if it's something impermeable like plastic. Be wary that a lot of the online delivery services are facing a lot of difficulties right now. And so if you order from them, expect that it may take a week or two to arrive. So don't order anything that you absolutely need ASAP. When you get a package, assuming it's something non-perishable, set it aside in your red zone for 2 days or rub it down with disinfectant. Please do not lick stamps. That is a perfect way to contaminate the entire mailing system. Just don't do it, please. If you go out to eat, I really recommend that you don't, but some places in the world aren't too contaminated yet. Order al fresco. Have it outside or order ahead and pick it up to go with you. A lot of restaurants now are closing or they're moving to drive-through only. If you order something, try to order something that's been cooked. It's less likely to have been contaminated in some way. If you order from food delivery services, ask for it to be left outside, and please tip your deliverer well. It's a difficult conversation, but it might make sense to have a think about your last will and testament and payable on death instructions. This means that should the worst happen, and we don't know who it may affect, even those of us who are young and strong, we know that that is covered. That will give us peace of mind. Have your estate plan and ready, and think about your trustees or your executors, because they may be in difficulties too. So maybe choose some people who are less likely to be affected, or choose a few extras. Check your life insurance policies as well, and health insurance, and make sure that you're well covered. You can also do a living will. And this means that if, for example, there's a termination of your medical services, you can specify that they must terminate your life as well immediately, and so that you're not obliged to linger without good treatment. This is very unfortunate and horrible to think about, but it's important to bear in mind. Also important to bear in mind is that if you're taking these documents to the notary or a lawyer, use your own pen. Don't use anyone else's dirty pen. Something important. There's some research on vitamin D, and it shows that there was a remarkable reduction in chest infections in this meta-analysis, both viral and bacterial. They recommended about 10 micrograms daily, at least for people in the UK. This means that if you take vitamin D, you're probably at a less likelihood of developing a serious chest infection. And this is particularly important for people who live in high latitudes, very north of the world or very south of the world, with darker skin. France has recommended that we don't use anti-inflammatory drugs such as aspirin or ibuprofen. Perhaps use paracetamol, acetaminophen, or Tylenol instead. This is very much up for debate, but it's something that you should pay attention to. And try not to use aspirin or ibuprofen if you can avoid it, or any other NSAID. You can get a pulse oximeter if you like, nice little gizmo, and you can put this on a sick person, and it will tell you if their breathing is getting into a labored state, if they're not getting enough oxygen into the body. Typically around 92 to 93% is getting into worrying territory, and that's when you absolutely should make physicians aware. Good sleep is absolutely crucial. I've put up some sleep tips here that you can take a look at. Again, if you see in the top right of the corner, there's tinyurl.com/NellCovid. You can download these slides with all of these links. And I encourage you to do that, and also to share this information with others. It may just save their life. There's a lot of danger for people in sheltered care environments. You might want to bring that person home if you think that you are reasonably unlikely to have been contaminated already with the virus. So you're pretty sure you're not going to be carrying it. Also, if kids are off school, please don't ask the grandparents to look after them. That is not a good idea. Please consider donating blood, especially if you are young and healthy. If you're not young and healthy, that's okay, you're off the hook. Blood contains lots of iron, as do plants, particularly cress, alfalfa, and spinach, which can grow in a short period of time, meaning that long before this crisis is likely to have finished, you're going to be enjoying fresh green goods for you to munch upon. And you can put these anywhere, whether it's on a balcony or hanging them out a window. You can grow your own healthy, fresh food in a short period of time. And this is going to be important. It's important because in China, a lot of food was wasted. So, for example, seafood, carrots, strawberries, chickens. A lot of food got wasted because of the lockdowns, and food wasn't being able to be taken away from the farms and down to the markets. And this means that food prices are probably going to get more expensive soon, particularly because China still has a problem with swine fever and also bird flu, which are making pigs and chickens even more difficult to farm and to rear. Furthermore, in other parts of the world, we're seeing locust storms, and these are eating up everything in their path in a big, wide belt, right from Sudan right the way through to India and even Western China. Now, we're hoping that they're not going to come into other territories, but again, this means that there's going to be probably a greater food pressure on the world. I think we're all going to adapt. I don't think people are going to starve in number, but it does mean that food is probably going to get a little more expensive. This brings us to economic considerations. In the past couple of days, we've seen the economy go in a crazy up and down earthquake-like pattern. And this is going to have some effects on health as well, particularly people's mental health. And maybe even it may affect people's health and well-being even more than the virus itself. There are a lot of attacks of people who are perceived to be different going on in the world right now. And also, in some parts of the world, like Italy, there have been a lot of breakouts of people out of prison. In Iran, they even let a whole bunch of people out of prison because they were in danger of becoming infected. In cities like Portland, police have said that they're not going to respond to crimes unless they're of a life-threatening nature. And so it makes sense to have a think about how we can protect ourselves in these times. We're going to see a lot of trauma from this situation, whether that's trauma of patients or practitioners who've had to make very difficult decisions, people dealing with the loss of loved ones, the loss of jobs and status, a lot of worries from resource constraints and what the future may bring. And this is a bad time for it because we know that depression can increase inflammation and actually make these kinds of viral situations even worse. There's the old kind of Kubler-Ross method or Kubler-Ross model of understanding the world. And it traditionally goes that, you know, people start off in denial or panic and then move through anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally on to acceptance. And that maybe makes sense to a degree in a world where there is one horrible thing that you have to adjust to. But in our topsy-turvy world, it's going to be coming at us from many different directions all at once, and that's going to be very hard for people to deal with. Over in China, there's been reports that a lot of relations have broken down because people have been stuck together in quarantine, for example. And so I really recommend that if you can, be there for others, right? Be there mentally, emotionally, and physically, and practically. Be there. Be forbearing and forgiving of others in these difficult times. And if you can, help people to find meaning in all of this crazy mess that we're in, and help us to build towards a future which is more like the world that we would like to see in future. Get to know your neighbors. You may need to count on them, right? We're all in this together. Collect their phone numbers, connect on things like nextdoor.com. And I've got a template. You can go to neighbortemplate@tinyurl.com, which basically says, howdy neighborino, I am so-and-so, I'd like to know you better. Now, the nice thing about this is that you can post it up. You don't need to go knocking on people's doorbells. You can just kind of have this asynchronous communication. Something else is that you can also, if you like, help more vulnerable people to get groceries, particularly at times when supermarkets are so chaotic and, you know, big heavy bags of food or cans or even cat food can be difficult for people to carry. But please wear gloves, right? You don't want to accidentally contaminate anyone's groceries. Physical distance need not mean social distance. You can check out Quarantine Chat if you're feeling a little bit stir crazy and a little bit isolated. I wouldn't want to be on my own going into quarantine. That's something that's tricky, but can be manageable, especially when you use things like Quarantine Chat to connect with others going through similar trials. If you're feeling a little bit touch-starved, you can carry a cuddly toy around. It's a nice thing to have, helps give us a little bit of security. You might think it's juvenile, but really it's something that's useful. If it helps, then that works. I also recommend finding a creative outlet, whether that's writing or art, finding a way to sublimate, to get some of your emotions out of your heart and out onto a piece of paper. That will help. And you can use your creativity as well, for example, to help contribute to engineering solutions to this lack of ventilators that we have at the moment. Or, for example, figure out how to 3D print things in new ways, to create doubles of existing components which are in tremendous short supply. And there's some wonderful groups, for example, at Project Open Air and the open source COVID-19 medical supplies group on Facebook. You can go there and you can help. Please help. This is so important. So I'm coming to the end now. And I'd like to think about this in a kind of a philosophical way. The pain of these times is kind of like when our muscles are stretched, when we're lifting something that's a little bit heavy or doing something in a new way. But that pain that we feel is supposed to be there. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. And it's teaching us that we are, in the end, becoming stronger. And anyone in painful times, I would like you to remember that. And today, the world is united, right? We're the first time in history where we have all of humanity united against a common foe. That's amazing. And every one of us, all 8 billion or so, need to show up. We need to bring something to this fight. We need to do our bit. All of us are pulling together to help save lives and help keep society on the rails. It falls upon each of us to step up towards public leadership in our own way, whatever way that might look like. Maybe we're helping to nurse people. Maybe we're looking after vulnerable people in our society. Maybe we are distilling information. There's so much of it out there. We need to make sure that we have good information and formulate it in ways that people can understand and be educated from. Some of you can listen to other people. You can be a friend. You can help people to stay in a good mental frame. And maybe when you're not feeling so well, they can help to pick you up as well. Find a way to give something. Find a way to champion human excellence and decency. This is the work. This is war work. This is God's work, if you will. The spotlight of history shines upon all of us today. What will you bring to humanity's finest hour? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, I had so many emotions as you were going through that presentation. On the one hand, it was scary, right? When you really see all these things that we do on a daily basis, and it's like the best way to support the world is to stop doing so many of these things that we do on a regular basis. And at the same time, I felt incredibly empowered because so many of these things seem so simple to be able to take on and to do and are practical, right? So thank you for bringing some practical things that we can all do as individuals right now in these times. It's I also have to say it's kind of strange hearing you talk on this topic and not what you're usually known for around the SU ecosystem. So when I saw this come through, I was like, oh, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But appreciate it all.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And it's strange, you know, this is not what I would normally talk about or normally wish to talk about, but you know, I'm really grateful to everyone who has watched this and who will take this information, download it and share it with others so that more people can learn and more lives can be saved. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so everybody, you've got the link down here, tinyurl.com/Nell, Nell, COVID, if you would like to get these slides. And of course, if there's anything in here that you're unsure about, we always encourage you, go do your research, go ask somebody else, get different perspectives. But there's tons of good stuff in here. And I love that you backed up so much of it with links out to sources as one would expect from you. We have a ton of questions, and what I'm going to ask is that for our team to package them up, and maybe what we can do is have you respond to some of them on social media afterwards.
Absolutely.
And then we can do a write-up maybe later on with some of your answers as well. So if you asked a question, Nell's going to go try to answer some of them over on social here in a little bit. So check that out there, and we'll keep rolling. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
See ya. Okay. All right. For everybody else, that is the end of that session. And we are going to roll to the next one. So let me pull up a couple the interstitial slides just so that everybody's clear on what's going on here. Looks like we've added a couple more people along the way. So we'll do a couple reminders so that everybody's got those. All right, so Nell's slides, there's the link right there in case you didn't get it the first time around. Yes, all these sessions are recorded. We will make them available for the foreseeable future. If they're not here on Crowdcast, they will eventually be on our website, and we will email anybody that's registered with links to be able to go and find those sessions. Some of our presenters today have slides that you can download, like Nell, and so they'll be available there. The other ones we'll do our best to see if we can get copies of the slides and share them out with you all later on. Like I said earlier, we're also doing our best to answer questions, but sometimes we just come up against the time that people have. So apologies for that. You can always keep asking them. We are recording them, and we plan to follow up with as many as possible along the way. If you want to chat with each other, I think we've got well over 100 people now in our WhatsApp group. That's the link there on .su.org/COVID chat. If you'd like to join that WhatsApp group, it's open to anybody. And then if you're interested in submitting some ideas on the Be Innovative platform, go and check out that link here at the bottom. And I know that last session, at least for me, got me a little thinking about what's going on. So I actually had a guest that popped in along the way. So if anybody needs some work from home, puppy pet love, this is Nibs. She's keeping us happy and healthy here at home in Austin. And she just decided to do a little bit of a cameo. So if you've got a pet, tweet at us with the hashtag COVID-19 SU Summit. We'd love to see what your pets look like at home as a way to, get a different sort of energy going on. So I'm going to shut down here. We will see you all in the next session about talking about how we can actually slow down the contagiousness of this virus and what we can do to yet feel more empowered about what's going on. So we'll see you shortly. Thanks, everybody.